In Blossom Blast Saga, there are two types of points. There's bloom points, which impacts your chaining results and your blooming into big buds. Then there's your score points, which impact the point level, your overall score, and your stars. With your bloom points, the flowers range from 1 to 9. You must chain at least 3 flowers on a big bud. That is included in the 3 count, but it doesn't give you any extra flower points. It sums the total of those flower points. For example, if you chain 3 1-point flowers, you'll end up with a 3-point flower. If you chain a 1, a 2, and a 3, you'll end up with a 6-point flower. Or if you're chaining into a big bud, it will reduce the size of the big bud by the flower value total of your chain. Now, if you get above the 9-point, you'll get a regular bloom up to 37 points. So chaining the flowers with a combination score between 1 and 9 will give you a bigger flower. Between 10 and 36 will give you a regular bloom. And over 37 will give you a super bloom. A regular bloom will increase any flower touching that flower by 3 points. So if you bloom beside a 1-point flower, you'll end up with a 4-point flower, or that flower will turn into a 4-point flower. If you bloom beside a 7-point or above flower, that flower will also bloom. So if your initial bloom is beside, say, a 5-point flower, that one becomes an 8. But if the one beside that one was above 7 and blooms as well, that flower will also bloom because it's increased by 3 of the first bloom and then a 3 again by the second. Now, if you do a super bloom, the flowers surrounding that, immediately touching it, will increase by 6 points. If you super bloom beside anything above a 3-point flower, it will also bloom. Below a 3-point flower, it will just increase by 6. So the flowers surrounding the super bloom will increase by 6, and the flowers surrounding those will increase by 3. So for scoring points, it takes the value of the chain you made and times it by 10. It then counts your blooms. So if you bloom once, it's worth 100. For each additional flower that blooms, it takes the previous score and adds 10. So my initial flower blooming is 100, the next one will be 110, the next one will be 120, and so on. It's actually better if you have a lot of flowers. Say you're not going to reach 37 points. Only use what you need to for the 10 if they're large flowers. So try to use the small ones so that when it blooms, it will chain bloom the other flowers and you'll get 100 plus for each flower. In this super bloom example, you'll see the flowers I'm using in number of flowers. So the flowers I've selected add up to actually 39 points. As you'll see by the bar, it's over the 37. You'll see all the flowers surrounding are quite small. None of them are above the 3. And you'll notice as it blooms, the other flowers fall down to fill in the gap, the flowers you're using in your chain. That all the flowers surrounding are not above the 3-point value, and then the flowers touching those are not over 7. So this super bloom is not going to bloom other flowers, but it is going to make them bigger. If any of the initial surrounding flowers were above a 3, or any of the ones around those were above a 7, it probably would have done a huge chain bloom. But because none of them surrounding the initial one were above a 3, or in the second row surrounding those was above a 7, no bloom occurred. If you notice the point value of the chain, it gave me 390 points for the chain, which was my 39 flower points times 10. And because only one flower bloomed from that, which was the actual super bloom, it gave 100 points. If other flowers had did a chain bloom, after that 100 points, it would have went 110, 120, etc. Other than flowers, if you remove objects such as flower pots, gophers, slimes, crows, they're worth 500 points each, but you don't get any points if you just hit them. You have to remove them. Please let me know if you have any questions or need clarification.